Aloha, good morning, ni hao, buenos dias. My name is Lily Chang. I serve as the founding director of the Chinese Culture Center at San Diego State University. I also humbly serve as the chair of the board of the San Diego Chinese Historical Museum. We are so honored today, so honored today to celebrate this major lecture series, the Chang Chinese American Experience and Beyond lecture, in memory of the 100th anniversary of the passing of our dearest Dr. Sun Yat-Sen, who passed away on March 12th, 1925. That was 100 years ago. So here we have audience from all over the world, especially from Hawaii. We are so happy to have University of Hawaii as one of our co-sponsors. We have people from Dubai, Costa Rica, Philadelphia, Denver, everywhere else. We also have family members of the Dr. Sun's family. We have a speaker, Leland Sun and Yan Chen. We also have Lorna, Ted, and Jenny from San Diego. We also have Miss Ann Poole from Philadelphia today and also from Cleveland, Ohio. We also have Michael Wong. Most importantly, we have Mr. Peng Wei Chen coming through from Philadelphia. So I am going to turn it over now to Dr. Bob Stein, who serves as a member of the board of the San Diego Chinese Historical Museum, as well as the director of the Palama Rehabilitation Hospital, and also local chapter of the American Heart Association. Dr. Bob Stein, please.
Well, first of all, thank you very much.
Are you frozen? I think Dr. Bob is frozen right now. I hope he can unfreeze. So Dr. Bob is trying to unfreeze, and I'm just going to announce that we have, for next month, we're going to have the China, Burma, India Theater. It's the forgotten theater of the Second World War. Presenting it will be the retired Major General William Chang, and also the daughter of Chenault, Dr. Cynthia Chenault. May 17th, we're going to have the Maritime Silk Road, taking all the way from the Voices of the UAE, United Arab Emirates. I will be presenting alongside with Kisi and Mohammed Salami. I hope Dr. Bob Stein is able to join us now. Is he able to?
I am back,
Okay,
and
good.
I'm more than happy to be here. And I was talking about upcoming events when I got disconnected from by my computer. I'm not sure how that happened. And I was mentioning General Chen, who is a retired Major General and is going to talk about the China Burma India Theater. And we're going to hear about all the events and the Chinese and American participants, including Claire Chenault and Vinegar Joe Stillwell. And then you certainly don't want to miss that. And in May, we're going to hear about the Maritime Silk Road, Voices from the United Arab Emirates, presented by partially our own Lily Chang, as well as Kisi Chi and Mohammed Al-Salami. And when we think of the Silk Road, we think of an actual road connecting east to west, a term that was colorfully coined by Baron von Richthofen in the 1870s. But it was more than that, and there was a major maritime aspect to it, and we're going to hear about that going all the way into the Middle East. And at this point, we're going to turn things back to Lily to talk about upcoming events at the San Diego Chinese Historical Museum. Lily?
Yes, we have, of course, the exhibition of the soft opening of the China, Burma, India victory on April 5th. And the next day, April 6th, we're going to offer the Asian Pacific Historic District walking tour. Thank you.
Okay. And we also want to thank our sponsors, the PL Charitable Trust and the Shu family. And at this time, I'm going to briefly have Dr. Yudan Wang from San Diego State University Chinese Cultural Center tell us about upcoming events there. Yudan?
Thank you, Dr. Bob. Hello, everyone. My name is Yudan Wang, the curator and developer of the San Diego State University Chinese Culture Center. The Chinese Culture Center established in 2019, and we aims to promote Chinese culture, Chinese history through the community, all over the country, the regions, and we have in-person events and virtual events. So I'm thrilled to announce two upcoming events. On March 18th, we will have a spring renewal workshop. It's a culture celebration with the vegan spring rolls. It's gonna be fun with some food and with the activities in the culture center. And also, we are having an art exhibit in the center. It's by artist Yu Chun Ming. It's the Water Village in Jiangnan. Welcome everyone all over. Bring your friends, come over and visit our exhibit and join our workshop. Thank you. And next slide. So here are the guidelines for today's Zoom lecture. After presentation, if you have comment question, you may raise your Zoom hand or write your question in the chat box. Our co-host Elizabeth, will call on your name with your turn. And before we start, we will take a group picture. Please turn your camera on just before the beginning of the lecture. And after that, we will start the lecture, and please turn your microphone and your camera off. Now it's about time for our group pictures. All right. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Beautiful. Let me do one. Okay, this is my last one. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to turn back to Dr. Bob.
I cannot hear Dr. Bob, so I'm just going to say that we're so honored to be able to invite Leland's son, Yan Cheng, and Dr. Busaba Ip coming up as our speakers. Also, we've invited Lorna, Ted, Jenny, and also Michael Wang, Pu Ying, and also Mr. Peng to join us from Philadelphia. Dr. Bob, I hope you're back. So at the moment, I think he's trying to figure out what's happening with his computer, but it has taken us a long time to make this happen. So again, I want to thank all the speakers for coming in and for also sharing with us their stories about our dearest Dr. Sun. And the first person that's going to speak is Leland's son, who now lives and commutes between Hawaii and California.
I am back.
Okay, thank you, doctor.
I am back, and I do apologize. My computer's having issues today. I don't know why. So you were dying to hear from Leland, and you'll recognize Leland perhaps if you squint a little, because 50 years ago he was in a number of MASH episodes on television. Although now he has other business ventures, and he's a great grandson of Dr. Sun, and on top of that, we're going to hear his unique and interesting story. And amazingly, Leland is going to tell us about how he wasn't even aware that he was related to Dr. Sun until he was in high school. And then we're going to hear from Yen Shun, who is who is the executive vice president of the Sun Yat-Sen Hawaii Foundation and the Chinese China SCL Sung Ching Ling Foundation. And then we're going to have Dr. Busaba Yip, who is in Lahaina and is associated with Chinese Museum in Lahaina and the Sun Yat-sen exhibit there. And we're also thrilled to have as guests great grandchildren, Lorna Chang Alcala, Ted Chang, and Jenny Chang, as well as Michael Wang from Philadelphia, who will try to get to speak to us for a bit, and Pooh from Cleveland, who's a newspaper person. And at this point, we want Leland to take it away. Leland, we're so happy to have you today.
Yes, thank you for having me and all the guests. Welcome to this Zoom conference. Now, as you see, Double Ten, it's a book about Captain Ansel O'Banion. And a lot of people around the world don't know his contribution to the Shanghai Revolution. But more than 10,000 people were smuggled into Mexico and came up to the United States and disseminated across 17 different communities across the U.S. They trained in the U.S. for up to 4 years in military science and tactics and then were smuggled back out. And these over 10,000 people taught other people in mainland China how to fight. And without O'Banion's establishment of the 17 military uh, schools, I should say, across the US and training all these people to train people in China, Sun Yat sen would not have succeeded in the revolution, in my opinion. So, Double Ten by Carl Glick, published in 1945. And it's a must reading for everybody. And I will be giving uh, many copies to the Sun Yat sen and Sung Ching Ling organizations in mainland China. And in 2027, I will have we I will be having a Sung Ching Ling Sun Yat sen joint venture conference at the LAX Hilton Hotel. Now, this picture you can see training the soldiers, excuse me, near Echo Park along the 134 210 freeway. Next slide, please. This is Homer Lee. He was the military advisor to Sun Yat sen. He was schooled at Occidental and went to Stanford. And as a baby, he was dropped in front of a fireplace mantle and therefore had a crooked spine. Next. Okay. One of O'Banion's pictures in Southern California. Captain Ansel O'Banion, as he just finished the Cuba Spanish American War in 1898. Next. Sun Yat sen, I don't know what age this picture was taken, but got to be in his 40s, maybe 59, yeah, 50 years old. Thank you. And this is Homer Lee, all dressed up as the military advisor of Sun Yat sen. Oh, I'm in the light blue shirt. My son, the fifth generation from Sun Yat sen, is Brandon. Uh, and then my father is in the suit. He's the grandson of Sun Yat sen. This is my family in uh, Canton, Guangzhou. My daughter, Chrisleen, and then Jaylene, myself, my wife, Peggy, and then Leanna, and then my son, Brandon. Mm. Yan, you're up.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. I'd like to ask you a couple questions, Leland. Tell me about how the oddity is that you didn't know your famous relative until you were in high school.
Um, my grandfather, Sunful, and my grandmother, and my father and my mother, they just raised me as a normal baby, child, and grandchild. And they never told me who Sun Yat-sen was or explained the fact. And I didn't know until I was a senior in high school and I was asked to do a term paper. And I didn't know what subject to choose. And my counselor said, "Why don't you do Sun Yat-sen? Write a term paper on him." And so, who is Sun Yat-sen? And this was just before Christmas vacation. So I was able to go home, research Sun Yat-sen at the USC library, and in returning back to classes, I was able to turn in a term paper on Sun Yat-sen. That's how we found out about my great grandfather.
It's actually a funny story. We would like to hear Yen Shun, who's speaking to us from Honolulu. Yen?
Aloha from Hawaii. I'm so honored to be here as presenter. Thank you, Professor Lily Chang, for this opportunity to share my family's history. I'm delighted to see you all, especially my cousins, Leland, Lorna, Ted, and Jenny. Today, next slide. Today, I'm going to talk about my family's connection to both Sun Yat-sen and Song Qingling. And then we'll share some family's historical role. Next slide. My family's relation to Sun Yat-sen and Song Qingling are 3 levels. First is my maternal grandfather, Wang Lip. He was a major supporter of Dr. Sun. Second, my father, Chi Kwan Chan, was the brother-in-law and English secretary to Sun Fo being Sun Yat-sen's only son. And my personal connection with Madam Sun Yat-sen or Song Qingling. Next slide. This is my maternal grandfather, Wang Lit. He was a Sun Yat-sen supporter. He went to China with Dr. Sun and fought in the first Canton uprising in 1895. The attempt failed. He returned home to Hawaii with his pistol. In this photo, you will see Wang Lit sitting in the middle. He had 6 children, my mother on the right side. So my grandfather's name was Huang Guanlie. Guan meaning minister or official. And when Dr. Sun met my grandfather, he said, our goal for the revolution is not government positions. So my grandfather dropped the first name, so he became Wang Li. You can see the influence, Dr. Sun's influence on my family. To start with that, my grandfather also told all his children to go for their education. So all the 6 kids, both men and women, I mean, boys and girls, all went to college. And my grandfather also said, when you have your education, go to China and help to improve the livelihood of the Chinese people. So that kind of ingrained in my mother's mind. And then she later went to China with my dad. Next slide. My father, Chi Kwan Chan, was born and raised in Hawaii as a farmer's boy in Kailua, Hawaii. In the summer of 1934, Chi Kwan, at age 22, just graduated from University Hawaii. And at that time, Sun Fo came to Hawaii with his entire family for vacation. And he met my dad. He saw my dad being a very young and active student leader. So he asked my father to go to China with him to be his English secretary. He told my dad that the Chinese government is very complicated. He wanted someone to be trusted as his assistant. So in this photo on the left, you see Sun Fo and Auntie So Ying in a lot of lace, and my father on the left side with lace. So this is the Chen family sending off my father and Mr. and Mrs. Sun Fo to China and was taken at Aloha Tower. My dad's mother, with the lady looking really sad, was felt really bad that her son is leaving and going to China so far away. On the right-hand side is a family photo taken in Nanjing. As you may know, Sun Fo and Chan So-ying have 4 children. So they're all in this photo. So Sun Fo and Mrs. Sun Fo seated in the middle with their youngest daughter, Rose, standing in the middle in between them. And TP's son, Leland's father, is right behind Sun Fo with the glasses. And then TK's son is kneeling in front, and my father on the extreme left. We see Pearl also standing behind Mrs. Sun Fo. Next slide. So photo again, Sun Fo, TK, Mrs. Sun Fo, and my father at the Nanjing Mausoleum. And Sun Fo was the president of Legislative Yuan, 立法院 at that time. So my dad had 2 positions in Nanjing. One is being secretary for Sun Fo. Meantime, Sun Fo sent my dad to Chinese teachers to learn his Chinese because my dad grew up in Hawaii and his Chinese wasn't that good. He learned Zhongshan Chinese, but he never spoke Mandarin. So he learned Mandarin from Nanjing. Meantime, he was an English instructor to the officers at the Central Military Academy in Nanjing. So in this photo, let's see, my dad is in a white suit in front, and the other people are all military, high-ranking military officers, and they were about to go to all the foreign countries to become military attaché for foreign countries. So my dad was actually younger than most of these students of his. Next slide. As the war broke out and Japanese occupied Northeast China and taking China piece by piece, Sun Fo felt that his children should be going away to be safe. So he asked my father to take his 2 sons, TP and TK, to study at UC Berkeley. Here we have a photo of dad and his 2 nephews, TP and TK. TP is standing on the right and TK right in front of him, and my father right in the middle. So next slide. As the Japanese taking China piece by piece, my dad said, well, there's no more land to reform, because Sun Fo told my dad to study agriculture economic at UC Berkeley. So after the war, he can come back and do land reform. So dad said, okay, there's no more land reform. So he wanted to go to China to fight the Japanese. So, and then at that time, he read a book by Edgar Snow, red star over China, describing how the communist government is fighting the Japanese. So he, through a friend, he wrote to Zhou Enlai, and Zhou Enlai arranged for his wife to take Qi to Yan'an, and my dad met all the top Chinese leaders. So on the left is a calligraphy written from Mao Zedong, Chairman Mao, to my father, praising my father for his patriotic spirit and sacrificing himself. And then the middle is a photo of my dad on the left with General Wang Zhen. On the right is written by General Zhu De, the famous general who fought all the war, welcoming my father as an overseas Chinese to help with the war. Next slide. So during the war, my dad was working behind the scene. CIC is called China Indusco, aimed to provide material and medical support to China by establishing small, self-supporting cooperatives in rural areas to create employment and produce goods for the war effort. So my father was in charge of CIC for 7 provinces. Next slide. After the war, okay, let me think. After the war, the Civil War broke out. So my dad thought, oh, there's nothing I could do in the Civil War. So he returned to Hawaii and met my mother. They dated for 3 years. In 1950, when China became People's Republic of China, my father said to my mom, hey, you know, I saw how corrupted the nationalist government is, and I see a new China, and I would like to go back and help. So my mom said, well, my father also was encouraging us to go back to China to help, so I will go with you. But I'm not going with you as your girlfriend. You have to marry me so that I will go. So they got married in 1950, and 8 days after their wedding, they moved to China. So they lived in China for 11 years. I was born in Beijing. And then in 1957, my dad helped China to establish its first trade fair in Guangzhou. In 61, my family moved to Hong Kong. And then my father founded a consulting company after President Nixon's historical visit to China in 72. So my parents helped Fortune 500 corporations invest in China. Next slide. My parents received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Sun Yat-Sen Hawaii Foundation on the left, and also the City Council. This is for their efforts to improve Chinese people's quality of life and to guide the country into a modern era. Their work also helped China open doors to the West and paved the way for improving trade and relations between China and the United States. Next slide. Now I'm going to turn a little bit and talk about my personal connection with Song Qingling. I'm so honored that I'm one of the few people who met her personally when I was in my 20s. And we saw each other many times, and we wrote letters and correspond to each other. I was so impressed by her, and I admire her for her principle and commitment to improving women and children's welfare in China. She dedicated her life to that. She was always humble, very graceful, thoughtful, and kind. Next slide. let me talk about these pictures. You can see Song Qingling was very affectionate. She always hug and kiss. That's the photo on the left. In the middle is the first time I met her, and then this is her living room. And when we met, she was holding my mom's arm constantly. This was 1978, and you see she's wearing blue, and then we were encouraged to wear blue and gray color. On the right is a birthday party for Roy Eiley, a very famous international figure who helped China. Song Qingling seated in the middle, and I was on her right in red. Next slide. Song Qingling passed away in 1981, and many members of the Sun family were on her bedside when she died. After she passed away, the family had a family discussion. We would like to carry her legacy and continue her work to honor her. So we had our first meeting in Ted, Lorna, and Jenny's family home with their parents, Paul and Rose, and we formed our U.S. Song Qingling Foundation. After that, we encouraged China to do a similar foundation so that we could cooperate and work. And they asked Deng Xiaoping to be the honorary chairman. So all the foundations had a focus, world peace and women and children's welfare. The middle photo is during Song Qingling's funeral. This is at Tiananmen Square. Her ashes was carried by his secretary at that time. And we, the family members, were following the ashes, going to the Great Hall of People. She was lay in state for 3 days. And we were just so impressed that when the bus going to the cremation site, along the road, there were so many layers of people weeping, sending her off. And this was like 3 miles long trip and all lined up with people. And some people were crying. So she was really, really well loved. On the right is at her gravesite. This was the first anniversary of her death. Next slide. So inspired by Song Qingling and Sun Yat-sen, my family have supported and funded many school projects in China as well as US. I've been working with many schools in Hawaii for exchanges. The middle photo is the Peking University students spending 1 week at Punahou School, and I have set that up recently for them. And then sorry. The
somebody needs to be muted.
Photo on the right is Mary No's school students in Hawaii studying Sun Yat-sen, and I led them on a tour and visited all the Sun Yat-sen sites. And then I also helped the sister city and sister state programs exchanges. Next slide. In 1997, we founded the Sun Yat-sen Hawaii Foundation. We research, chronicle, and document and exhibit the important history links between Dr. Sun and Hawaii's people and institutions who made many contributions supporting Sun Yat-sen in his efforts to modernize China. Photo on the left is at the Sun Yat-sen Memorial in downtown. Our foundation raised funds to have this statue of Sun Yat-sen at age 13 when he came to Hawaii. Leland was at the opening ceremony when we dedicated the statue to Honolulu. And then on the right is when our foundation first founded, and we had a ceremony at Punahou School. Next slide. In today's world, I think it's incredibly important to remember that historical figures like Sun Yat-sen and Sun Qingling wanted nothing but cooperation and peace between the East and the West. The slide on the right is our 150th forum, marking Dr. Sun's
Ridiculous, man.
anniversary. This was held in 2016 at the East-West Center. And you can see there's so many people from all over the world, from different backgrounds and expertise coming together to build a better future. This is the work that our foundation finds so meaningful to do. In the front row, you will see Leland's 4 children. And then Pearl is in the middle, Pearl and Rose, the two granddaughters of Sun Yat-sen are in the middle standing. So it was really, really well received. Next slide. I'm going to talk about the next generation. I have 2 children, Jonathan and Adrian. Jonathan's name is also related to the cause. His in Chinese is Yi Ping. So using perseverance to achieve peace. Jonathan worked in China for 13 years, and he's also a trustee of the Sun Qingling Foundation in Beijing. I named my daughter after, next slide. I named my daughter after Sun Qingling. Her Chinese name is Yiling, to remember Sun Qingling, because I really admire Sun Qingling for her integrity and her beautiful heart. We continue to work so that we can, on the foundation, which empower, my daughter's work is at the foundation, which empowers underprivileged individuals and pair them with companies that will hire them.
That would be a democracy right now instead of,
Well, that's
I'm really proud of my family's connection, and we like to dedicate everything we do to honor Sun Yat-sen and Sun Qingling. And we're committed to focus on education, women and children's welfare, and also US-China relations. And ongoing efforts, I'm working on a painting project with the mayor of Honolulu and Zhongshan City, so that we will feature paintings from Hawaii children age 5 to 15. And
get
then
annoyed at her ever?
the
what
topics
she's
of
telling
the
me?
painting will be Sun Yat-sen and Hawaii. And we hope through this project, we will educate the children in Hawaii about Sun Yat-sen and his history. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for your time.
I want to thank you very much, Yen, and it was a very interesting presentation. And Dr. Sun was more than just a revolutionary, more than just the first president of the Republic of China. He also was a philosopher, and people gathered to talk about his world view and world peace and the like. And It's a fascinating story. And at this point, I'd like to have Busaba Yip Douglas speak from Maui, who, as we mentioned, works with the Woting Chinese Museum and the Sun Yat-sen exhibit. And we're looking forward to having it being rebuilt after that terrible Lahaina fire. And Busaba, why don't we show your slides? And we're so happy to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bob. Aloha ni hao. สวัสดีค่ะ It's an great honor to be with you all, celebrating the legacy of Dr. Sun, his family, and supporters. Not only Chinese who contributed to the revolutionary activities of Dr. Sun. As the father of modern China and the first provincial president of the Republic of China in 1912. Next slide, please. I'd like to share a little bit history of Chinese coming to Hawaii. Most Hawaiian Chinese came from Guangdong province in South China. From our research in 1788, the earliest Hawaiian Chinese arrived to the Big Island on European American trading ships as carpenters, cooks, and workers. In 1792, the trading of sandalwood began between China and Hawaii. So Chinese call Hawaiian Sandalwood Mountain or Tan Hang San in Cantonese or Tan Sing San in Mandarin, a fragrance mountain. So in 1852, thousands of Chinese immigrants came to Hawaii as contract workers when the big sugarcane plantations start and no workers. So most of the workers came, they worked 3 or 5 years. When the contract ends, most of the Chinese will move out and open their store and business. That's the beginning of Chinatown. Next slide, please. Right in Lahaina, Maui, a group of Chinese during the late 1800s formed the Wohing Society, helping members maintain social and political ties with their family and ancestral home. And in mid-1900s, the number of Chinese population start to decline because the first generation, they came, they worked very hard. They sent children to school, turned into different professions, lawyer, doctor, dentist. So they did not come home to the family business. So it happened also when all the members of the Wohing Society start to decline. So the building Wohing Society Hall almost damaged by termites. So in 1983, the Lahaina Restoration Foundation came have a long-term agreement with the Wohing Society to restore the buildings and open them as a museum since 1984. Next slide, please. So my journey started more than 20 years ago when I came after my PhD. I don't know why and how, but I end up more than 20 years. I'd like to share with you. This is an incredible journey that I make of not knowing. It's a calling for me to come here to save all the history before the Lahaina fire. So we like to share the picture on the left-hand side, the black and white building. This is the first Wohing Society Hall in Lahaina. And we found some very exciting information. Sun Yat-sen came and have a secret meeting at the second floor of this first Wohing Society Hall. It's very, very sad. In Lahaina, August 8, 2023, the Wi-Fi destroyed the second Wohing Society Hall, together with many valuable historical cultural artifacts, including a lot of old documents related to Dr. Sun Yat-sen to the wooden plaque and couplets. I will share with you more later on. The rebuilding of Wohing together with Lahaina town is a long-term process that You all can join by becoming a members or friend of the Wohing Foundation and join the Lahaina Restoration Foundation to rebuild our loving Lahaina historic town. Next slide, please. So this is the Wohing Society Historical Research Project. Is very significant after Lahaina fire. We found out this most of the artifacts that wooden plaque were burned in the fire, but we are thankful that through this historical research project, we keep all the historic record live on the digital format. So please join us. It's an ongoing project that we like to continue share our story to the world. And there are a number of documents related to Dr. Sun Yat-sen. And that picture of me, when I came 20 years ago, I have black hair and I'm helping organizing this record. And I like to share, next slide, please. Next slide, please. This is another exciting history, the missing history we like to honor. So this booklet shows during the early 1900s, Maui Chinese have 7 society hall that supporting each other and assisting Dr. Sun Revolution. Photo on the left-hand side is the Wailuku Ji Gong Tong Hall. This is one of the very important mother organization that unite all the Chinese society and supporting Dr. Sun Yat-sen. And the left-hand side, that is the Kok Heng Hall in Kiokia. So we find out that this is a picture of the first Kok Heng Society Hall, where Dr. Sun and Sun Mei, is the elder brother, had been a members. Next slide, please. So today, this is a picture of the Kok Heng Society Hall that rebuilt in 2005. Today, this is the only Chinese society to survive on Maui after the Wohing was burned in the fire. The Kok Heng and Wohing used to be a chapter of the Ji Gong Tong, known as the Chinese Freemasons. The Ji Gong Tong was established as a Hawaiian chapter of the Hong Moon or Hong Men. It's a secret society supporting members in the history far back overthrown the Manchu Cheng dynasty, also assisting Dr. Sun Yat-sen in his revolution. Next slide, please. So this is information from our research, also show the more connection between the family and Maui's with the history of Sun Yat-sen. I like to start from the little picture of the plaque at the bottom. Okay, these 3 plaques show the Wohing Society support Dr. Sun. Is honor Guan Gong and also the 5 monks of the Shaolin Temple that survive and start the Hong Moon and continue the history when the Chinese came here. So now we like to honor Sun Mei. Sun Mei, the elder, the greatest supporter of Sun Yat-sen. He came to Honolulu in 1871 when he was only 17 years old. He worked as a vegetable and rice planter. And then he brought a lot of workers to Hawaii at that time. So Sun Mei brought Sun Yat-sen came when he was 12 years old to Hawaii and provide his education in Honolulu and further his education, sent him to a medical school in Hong Kong. So when Sun Yat-sen became a medical doctor, he started a clinic called the China East West Clinic, helping the poor elders for free. One day he realized China as a sick country, the most difficulty that time is poverty, people dying, starving to death. Sun Yat-sen became a revolutionist. So he started the first uprising in 1895 and it failed. The first Guangzhou uprising failed. And no praise for him. He was the most wanted man in China. So for safety, he moved his whole family. That's the picture at the bottom on the left-hand side. His family moved to Maui in 1896 and lived at Sun Mei Kula Ranch until 1907. We like to honor more about Sun Mei. Next slide, please. The next slide, Sun Mei was behind Dr. Sun's accomplishment. Sun Mei moved to Maui in 1881, opened a store and leased thousands of land from the government, opened a very big cattle ranch in Kiokia, known as Kula Chinatown. Sun Mei, a successful rancher and merchant, he was given the name King of Kula or King of Maui. In 1894, November 24th, Dr. Sun organized the Xinzhong Hui Society Revised China as the first political group in Honolulu, and Sun Mei was the chairman of the Maui Kahului branch. We like to honor Sun Yat-sen's contribution in the way he's a great organizer. He went to Japan in 1905 and organized another revolutionary group called Tong Men Hui to unite all the small revolutionary group to support Dr. Sun Yat-sen. So we can see that Dr. Sun Yat-sen's supporters were not only Chinese, but people from all over the world. Dr. Sun credited Chinese people living outside of China, planting the seeds for the Chinese Revolution. Some even sold their home, business, and all their life saving to support the revolution. Some even they know their loved one went to China, they may not come home. So we like to honor them all at this special occasion of. So yes, the next slide, please. I'd like to share a little bit more. Next slide. This is Sun Mei Ranch in Kiokia. This ranch is significant. It's like beside a former home of Dr. Sun, his family, is a political meeting place on Maui. Today, it is a hunting field. I'd like to thank you, the Chinese in Kula, in particular, Richard Chim. He went to the land of Sun Mei today that owned by Haleakala Ranch, and the only thing left is the rock wall. Sun Mei became the wealthiest Chinese in Hawaii. At the end, he declared bankruptcy and returned to China in 1907. Sun Mei devoted everything to the cause of the modern Chinese Revolution. Next slide, please. So today, Sun Mei Ranch, today we have, next slide, this is the, the number, slide number 11. Today at Kula, this is a Sun Yat-sen Memorial Park that was built in 1989, facing overlook the Sun Mei Ranch. And Dr. Sun's statue base provide educational teaching of peace, love, harmony, kindness, loyalty, and justice. With our appreciation to Dr. Sun and Sun Mei descendants, families, friends, and supporters in keeping the legacy of Dr. Sun alive for future generations. Next slide, please. So this, next slide, please. This slide will show there were 10 uprising failed before 1911, the revolution that ended the Qing Manchu dynasty. Dr. Sun was the most wanted man, and he made, from our research, he made more than 6-7 trips to Hawaii, Honolulu, Maui, and the Big Island. And the picture on the bottom is, we like to honor the Maui Kuomintang members, celebrating, honoring their contribution in supporting the Kuomintang Party in China, which formed by Dr. Sun in 1912. Next slide, please. Dr. San's political ideas were grounded on the three principles of the people: nationalism, democracy, and people's livelihood. The revolutionary thoughts of Dr. San was based on weaving the ancient Chinese principle of the Tao to the Western idea of politics. San's philosophy of the great harmony of the world was based on the wisdom of Confucius in cultivating morality for universal peace, love, and harmony. Next slide, please. Dr. Sun devoted 40 years of his life to the cause of the people's revolutions, which rooted in the humanitarian aspect. Dr. Sun's testament mentioned that the work of the revolution is not yet done. Next slide, please. Universal peace and global harmony are Dr. Sun's dying wish. Though his wishes have not been fulfilled, we can carry forward Dr. Sun's dream of equality and freedom for all nations with respect for one another. Thank you, เสีย mahalo. สวัสดีค่ะ ขอบคุณค่ะ
Busaba, I loved your presentation, and I wanted to ask you this question. People may not realize that Sun Mei bankrupted himself in trying to help his brother Sun Yat-sen. Do you think that Sun Yat-sen would have been successful without his brother?
You have a very good questions.
What do you think?
Could I answer that?
Of course,
Yeah, thank you, Leland.
please.
Um, Sun Yat-sen would not have succeeded without his brother's financial help. Sun Yat-sen went around the world on 8 trips. Somebody had to pay for it. Now, Sun Fo has 11 binders of every single nickel, dime, or penny uh, contributed to the revolution. These 11 folders are housed in the National Archives in Taipei, Taiwan. And, yeah. So anyway, now
Well, no, thank you, Leland. While you're there, Leland, let me just ask you a tiny question. Um, what do you
um,
make of
the
the
reason
fact
why
that
I don't know if
Dr. Sun was in office January 1st of 1912 and resigned 3 months later to be replaced by Yuan Shikai? Why did that happen? Why was he president for merely 3 months?
he didn't want to have how do you say the glory because he felt that after the revolution his contribution was finished. But then Yuan Shikai wanted to turn the presidency back to a monarchy, to be the emperor. And so Sun Yat-sen started building for a second revolt against Yuan Shikai, only to find out later on Yuan Shikai died of health reasons in office. Uh, After that, then the how do you say uh, people of China elected Sun Yat-sen to be the president of China, not provisional president.
Yeah, thank you, Leland. I thought I would just mention a minute or two about my own personal thoughts and the Eurocentric nature of history. And how did I learn about Sun Yat-sen? And believe it or not, Muting, could I have that, my first slide, from stamp collecting. And so I collected stamps and I had this series from China that was created, I think, in the early 1940s, the Chinese Martyr series, and on the top in the middle is the sun with rays emanating from it. And I wondered what that was, and it turns out that's the symbol of the old Republic of China and the Kuomintang Party, and it had a variety, and this was Also, these stamps were also published during the time of the Japanese occupation. And so, not through history, but through stamps. And I have a good friend who may be on this call, Michelangelo, who's the archivist at my medical school, and he was telling me a very analogous story. How did he learn about Sun Yat-sen? He was studying the Titanic, and the Titanic sank. You may or may not know in 1912, almost exactly when Sun Yat-sen came to power, and because of that, people were fascinated by at the time with China. And if I could have the next slide, what you're looking at is. That is Mrs. Harper holding Sun Yat-sen. And so my friend Michael noticed that the dog that was saved in thinking of the Titanic was named after Dr. Sun. And then he wondered, well, who is Dr. Sun? And he looked it up and he went to the library, and that was his knowledge. But not through history. And when I was in high school, if I could have the next slide, who did we learn about who were the main people who were changing the world? We learned about Darwin, Marx, and Freud. And if I could have the next slide, and sometimes Einstein was added, Darwin, Marx, Freud, and Einstein. But Dr. Sun, who, by the way, is referred to as Dr. Sun because he was a medical doctor. He's a graduate of the Hong Kong College of Medicine for Chinese in 1892, taught by none other than John Glasgow Kerr, who was a medical missionary who graduated from my medical school in the mid 1800s, so which is an odd coincidence. My medical school is 201 years old. And so the Dr. Sun is omitted from uh, from the Eurocentric historical story about the movers and shakers of the 20th century. I find it shocking. What do you folks think about that?
Um, I haven't given much thought on that. I'm preoccupied with Sun Yat-sen and mainland China.
No.
Now,
Um,
may I go ahead?
no, no, that's just fine. At this time, I'd like to ask whether Ted Chiang, another great grandchild of Dr. Sun's, would like to have any comments. And we're honored to have you with us. And if your siblings are here, we're more than happy to hear from them as well. Ted,
Yeah, my
are you still?
sisters, Jenny and Lorna, are on this Zoom also. But you were talking about, yeah, having grown up here in the United States, the U.S. education system is predominantly centered on American history and European history. So, for the most part, I think in the United States, students do not learn a whole lot about Chinese history.
Yeah, it's actually shocking. It's actually shocking. We're very happy to have you here. This was a very interesting presentation. We also have with us, I think we have um, Ann Poo, who works for the Erie News in Cleveland. If you're here on this call, we'd love to hear from you if you have any thoughts. And I see Jenny Frost is here as well, and if she would like to offer her comments, we'd love to hear from her as well.
Well, I just want to thank everyone who presented. It's very interesting and a part of history, and relationship between, Sun Yat-sen and different relatives, the connection. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, and again, we're happy to have you join us on this presentation. Um, At this point, I'd like to ask Elizabeth about comments that she's picked up in the chat room.
Mm.
And I'd also like to have any further thoughts from our three presenters. We're certainly happy to have you, and we always enjoy hearing you, and we're very fortunate to have this excellent panel.
Okay, there is a comment from Patrick Anderson. Sun always thanked Dr. later Sir James Cantley, his medical mentor at the Hong Kong School of Medicine for Chinese, for saving his life twice. I don't know if Patrick would like to address the panelists. I'm also
I would
looking.
like to answer that.
Go ahead.
Sun Yat-sen studied under Dr. Cantley, but when Sun Yat-sen was in London, the legation, the Chinese legation, how do you say, caught Dr. Sun Yat-sen and imprisoned him in in their attic. And there was a a person who brought the coal to the legation, and Sun Yat-sen was able to uh, get some paper and write a note and throw it out the window. And this person who delivered the coal found the note and read what Dr. Sun Yat-sen said in English, and the coal person took it to uh, uh, Sir James Catney, and it was Catney who raised uh, ruckus with the newspapers and the townsfolks to get Dr. Sun Yat-sen released from the legation.
Well,
Now,
that's actually a cool bit of history. Leland, you obviously didn't live through this, so you've been a student of Dr. Sun's history, and so you've spent your life studying this. Is that correct?
correct.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful.
Only after I found out who he was.
In 11th grade.
Yes.
Yes.
Now,
Busaba, I
maybe,
saw. If I may mention, I saw someone mentioning a concern about the Wohing Temple and the museum in Lahaina being destroyed by fire. And I know you're planning to rebuild. People probably are interested in making donations if there's a foundation, and they also are interested in what's been preserved and how much is digitized and when it will be rebuilt. Can you give us some information about that, Busaba?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bob. Um, please go to the Wohing Foundation website and the Wohing Society, and they work very hard. Jacqueline, the secretary of Wohing Society, with all the board members, are working very hard together with Theo Morrison, the Lahaina Restoration Foundation, in the process of rebuilding Wohing Temple Society Hall together with the whole historic Lahaina town. I know it's a long-term process, so the Wohing Society have a long-term plan and short-term plan. So please join the website, go to the foundation to see the plan, and thank you for your support. So you can become friend and member and then continue to the journey that we like to. The process of recovering is a long-term process that we like to move forward with hope for the future. Thank you for everyone for your, yeah,
And
for your
what about the
support.
digitizing? Am I correct that
So
you
the
have an awful lot
digitized,
of
actually,
information?
we like to thank you, the Lahaina Restoration Foundation. We have the 2,000 pieces of record. The physical record was saved at the one of the historic site that survived. And the Lahaina Restoration Foundation, together with Wohing Society, take care the physical um, body of the 2000, but the wooden plaque couplets in that burned down in during the Lahaina fire, we have a digital format that the 2000 pieces of record in a digital format. We are in the process of reorganizing and categorizing and preserving and share the history to the world, including a lot of information about Dr. Sun Yat-sen
Well,
and the
that's
Chinese in
wonderful. So
Hawaii.
we'll look on the website and we'll look forward to the building rising again and the material being uh, available for viewing. That's going to be wonderful.
Thank you.
Yen, we so appreciated your presentation today. Do you have any further thoughts?
I just want to thank the organizers and sponsors for this event. I think through all these conferences and symposium, we get to understand Sun Yat-sen Sun Yat-sen and Song Qingming. We have a research room at the University of Hawaii Hamilton Library, and we have tons of sources and information, books and records. Leland has a scroll written by Dr. Sun about the Constitution, and right now is on display at the university. So if you live in Hawaii, stop by the Hamilton Library and look at this wonderful exhibit. And our Sun Yat-sen Hawaii Foundation will continue to support. And we have a budget to invite people who want to study Sun Yat-sen to come to Hawaii. There's a stipend for people to come and study Sun Yat-sen and Song Qingming. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you, Yen. I wanted to comment. I want to point out that Dr. Sun's mausoleum is in mainland China and can be visited. And I do find it fascinating that here you have an individual who is perhaps equally revered by the nationalist Kuomintang Party as well as the Chinese Communist Party. And it seems almost impossible, but yet it's true. And I wonder if any of the speakers would like to address that.
Well, Dr.
The
Sun
fact
is
that
a
both.
well-loved figure all over the world, as you say, not only by the parties, but people all around the world, because he was so selfless and patriotic. He, as Leland mentioned, he did not want to be the head of a state. He just want to make China make China strong, and the people's livelihood and all that. So he is so well loved by everybody all over the world.
Leland?
Especially the Chinese people.
Yeah. But so the Communist Party feels that he by by revolution and by moving beyond the dynastic order, he allowed them to appear and thrive. And I guess the Nationalist Party, the Kuomintang, has almost identical feelings. So they have almost precisely the same feelings about Dr. Sun, coming from different political directions, which is, again, so interesting to me. I find that to be just a fascinating aspect of things.
Well, I think
Yes.
you can say, hi, this is Ted. I think you can say for um, both the mainland and for Taiwan, his writings were the central part of his writings were about economic development, freedom from foreign interference, and nationalism. And those themes resonate both in Taiwan and on the mainland with both governments.
Yes, and so while one would think that are opposite ideologies, it is interesting that his writings, as you say, are precisely resonating identically with both groups, so, which I guess bespeaks his brilliance, right? I mean, amazing that he could be appealing to so many different peoples, you know. Elizabeth, I'm sure we have many other comments. May I ask you to give us a few others? Or plus, if there are people who wish to speak, feel free to raise your digital hand, and we'll scan the group, and we're more than happy to call on you. And so, Elizabeth?
Okay. There are certainly a lot of comments that are expressing gratitude for the presentations. There's a person named Ben Xiu. I'm going to read his comment, and if he'd like to address the panel, he may feel free to turn on his camera and his microphone. It is interesting to the panel that a society like China, whose parents are fairly pragmatic, such as doctors and engineers, reveres Dr. Sun Yat-sen, who was one of the country's great dreamers. Ben, would you like to elaborate?
Oh, nice to speak with you all. Forgive my grammatical error. Yeah, Chinese people are known for being fairly pragmatic. All their parents want their children to be doctors, lawyers, engineers. And I thought I'd ask the panel, what do they think about the fact that Sun Yat-sen is so revered in China and by Chinese all around the world as being one of the really the great, profound dreamers of China. He failed more than he succeeded at first, but he changed the country. Thank you all.
Oh, well, thank you, Ben, for your comments. Elizabeth?
Okay. Well, there's a person named Eva or Eva, and pardon me if I'm not pronouncing your first name correctly, Eva Cheng. She was interested to know if Dr. Sun also tried to raise money from the San Francisco Chinatown.
Yes, definitely. Um, my great grandfather went all over the United States where there was large Chinese communities, and in San Francisco, he worked and used a San Francisco Chinese newspaper as home base, and he would give speeches. Uh, how do you say, giving the history and news of what it was happening in China. And he did this in Southern California, in Denver, Colorado, and Chicago, and New York, and into Europe. So wherever there was Chinese communities, he would give speeches in order to raise monies.
Yeah,
And this,
yeah, he was remarkably peripatetic, and
Mm.
he took more trips, and in those days, each one was arduous. It's actually amazing when you look at where he went. How many trips did he take to mainland United States?
On record, 8 world trips, but my guess is that he came into Hawaii and the San Francisco under assumed names.
Yes, most likely because of his fame and notoriety.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, since I still have the floor, I wanted to digress back to uh, what people thought of the bankruptcy of Sun Mi. Sun Mi supported his Sun Yat son for close to 20 years financially, but Sun Mi, um, he was brought to Honolulu, Ewa Beach, by his uncle. His uncle had a general store that sold to the Hawaiian population. And back during those days, the Hawaiians and minorities were allowed to build on the worst areas of Honolulu. And Ewa Beach was saltwater marshes. And so um, Sunmi's uncles helped uh, to teach the Hawaiians how to reclaim the saltwater marshes. And eventually, he built a general store selling to the Hawaiians. And then um, Sun Mi got there. He learned Hawaiian language first, and then helped his uncle run the general store. Eventually, a second general store was opened in Honolulu itself, near Chinatown, and through both general stores, started to make money. And how do you say? Sunmi heard about how do you say King Kalakaua. At that time, the missionaries' grandchildren wanted to start how do you say sugar plantations because uh, the United States had no tariffs for Hawaii sugars going into the United States. So the grandchildren of the missionaries thought it was a great opportunity to make money. And so they started, wanted to start plantations, but how do you have the workers to raise the sugar cane? So King Kalakaua said he would pay $100 in gold for every Chinese brought to Hawaii to sign a 1 year contract to work in the plantations. Sunmi heard about this and he sent back his, how do you say, uh, to Macau and Hong Kong to his friends to send Chinese to Honolulu and the islands to, how do you say, work as sugarcane plantation people. For $100 in gold for every Chinese, and Sun Mi and his two friends in Maui and not Maui, but Hong Kong and Macau, that was buku bucks. And so they split the money, and that's how Sun Mi was able to buy land in Maui. And uh, maybe about 12 years ago, Victor's son, uh, how do you say? I used to tell Victor, my cousin, that his great grandfather was bankrupt and that there were archived Hawaii State Archive records, which is now in the U.S. archives in San Bruno. So Victor went up to see the curator of the San Bruno archives and found out that the archives had, how do you say, legal documents against Sun Mi. And because of the Chinese Exclusion Act in the US, which was extended to Hawaii after the US took over Hawaii, uh, I think it was called the White Act. Anyway, um, anybody above, I think, 12 or 16 years old had to leave Hawaii if you were Chinese. And so um, Sun Mi, he made his money uh, under the, how do you say, um, Kingdom of Hawaii. He bought the land under the Kingdom of Hawaii. And yet the United States Internal Revenue wanted him to pay back taxes. And so Sun Mi fought the Internal Revenue, uh, going through a lot of court cases, and all the court cases he lost. And so eventually, Internal Revenue took Sun Mi's 4,000 acres, which he bought from the Kingdom of Hawaii, and 2,000 leased acres. And Sun Mi had to sell off his acreage slowly in order to pay legal fees. And eventually, he was, you might say, broke. And so he went back to Hong Kong, and eventually Sun Mi was buried in a public cemetery. But what people don't know is Sun Mi's, if you go to the Sun Mi ranch, the ranch was gone. But there's a house, I think it's a 4 5 bedroom house that overlooks uh, where the Sunmi Ranch was. This 4 5 bedroom house was bought by the Tavares family of Maui, and eventually they sold the this ranch or house to a young fella. I forgot his name, but then he how do you say refurbished the house, and he built a few cabins for tourists. And this gentleman still maintains the house that Sunmi had built. And one thing to note is there was columns holding up the porch veranda, and within the columns, uh, you could open the doors, and they would hide guns in there, and these old-fashioned muzzle-loading flintlocks and stuff like that. And so, um, anyway, when Sunmi had to leave, um, you know, because of the internal revenue. So, granted, Sunmi did support the revolution and his younger brother for close to 20 years, but it was the internal revenue that caused the bankruptcy of Sunmi.
Leland, that's an interesting point. And so I had thought it was in money spent in support of his brother, Dr. Sun Yat-sen, but that's an interesting point of view. I also
Oh,
found it interesting that he got his start, Sun Mi, as a labor organizer regarding Chinese and sugarcane. And I'm reminded of San Diego, where I live, and the unofficial mayor of Chinatown, Ah Quinn, was famous for a variety of reasons. A brilliant man, spoke English and Chinese, but he also provided labor for fishing industry and railroad building back in the 1800s, and met an untimely death in an accident. But it's an analogous story. And Aquin's descendants still live in San Diego and Los Angeles and other parts of the world now. Um, I want to, at this point, thank everyone for attending this wonderful session. And I want to again thank Busabi Douglas, Leland Sun, Ian Chun. I want to mention that next month you certainly don't want to miss Major General William Chen's story about the CBI Theater, and I'm sure it'll be a story that you'll not hear anywhere else. Uh, and um, and then the following month, we're going to hear about the Maritime Silk Road and the connection to the United Arab Emirates. So, which is going to be another cool session. And each one will be on the third Saturday of April and then third Saturday of May. And I'm looking forward to it myself. And I think it's possible we may just have time for one final question. I did see in the chat box one of the viewers opined that Dr. Sun had a change of heart after he relinquished office to Yuan Shikai and thought it was a mistake. I'm not sure if any of the panelists agree with that sentiment. Do any of you folks have any thoughts about that?
I don't think my great grandfather um, had regrets.
So you think he did not have regrets? Well, as you
Yeah.
say it, Leland, it makes enormous sense that he felt that he had done what he had done. He was a revolutionary. He moved China into the 20th century with the Republic, and he thought, as you say, his work was done, you know.
Yes.
So yes,
Work was done after the revolution.
yes, yeah, okay.
Now,
Elizabeth, do we have perhaps one more question?
So I know there was a person a moment ago, okay, Mimi Lau. She was interested to know, did Sun Yat-sen wish for women to study engineering and medicine in the West? She mentions in the Western culture there was discrimination against women studying these professions. and is interested to hear if there are any thoughts about that. I don't know, Mimi, if you would like to open your microphone.
He supported women to be as well educated as men. And since he had great influence on my maternal grandfather, and my grandfather said to all 6 children, both sons and daughters, that you all get well educated so that someday you can go back and help China. So I definitely feel Dr. Sen felt the same, very equal treating men and women.
Okay. Well,
Correct.
well, thank you, Yan. And coming from a great grandchild, I guess that statement carries quite a bit of weight. Again, I want to thank everyone for attending today, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone in a month. If we could, I do apologize about minor electronic glitches at the beginning of this. It's really never happened before. I wonder if we're going to say goodbye, but if the principals, the speakers, and Elizabeth and Yuden and Muting could stay on, we'll have about a 5-minute little debriefing, and then we'll say goodbye. So it's always a pleasure seeing everyone. Sponsored by the Chang Chinese American Experience and Beyond, San Diego Chinese Historical Museum, and San Diego State, and looking forward to seeing everybody in a month. Okay, thank you. And we'll just wait about a minute. Okay.
Now,